teleprompter, create videos you're proud of. Easily trim your video by selecting the words where you want to start and end. Color your presentation with automatic subtitles and highlighting keywords. Add your brand logo. Add music for an emotional touch. Add your contact info on an animated business card on all your videos. Easily replace green screen with an image or a video loop. Stand out with a web page with your logo, your video at the center, and personalized button for visitors to interact. It's one tap to simultaneously upload your videos on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Always know what to say next with the Big View teleprompter.
Hello and welcome. We are thrilled to have you here for Brand Essentials, the ultimate guide to kickstart a money-making brand. I'm your host today, Cheryl Tan. Let us know what you do and where you are joining us from. We have a global audience, and it's so much fun to hear where people are joining us from. I'm in Virginia, actually sitting right now in the city of Chesapeake. So let us know where you're joining us from, and you might have some neighbors here you didn't know. Our guest expert today is Brand and Marketing Accelerator Renée T. Walker. She's an award-winning strategist, TEDx speaker, keynote speaker, and author who honed her expertise through executive positions with multi-million and billion-dollar brands in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors. Today, she's going to show us how to create a profitable brand strategy that drives sales, builds customer loyalty, and differentiates your products and services. With actionable insights and proven strategies, new and seasoned business owners will be equipped to elevate their brands and achieve results. So welcome, Daniel, from Orange County, California, Whiskey Her Away in Long Island, New York, Jo Ellen Sardo from Pompano Beach, Florida. Thanks so much for joining us today. Okay, so the format of today's workshop, Renée is going to share her insights, and I will be here to make sure your questions are answered. So if you have a question for Renée, please type a Q in the comments and then share your question. As for me, I work with coaches, consultants, and corporate executives to help them show up with more confidence on camera. Whether your goal is to be a confident public speaker, a confident video creator, or a better presenter for your team, I can help you. So stay with us until the very end, because Renée is going to be sharing the chance to have a free strategy session with her. She's giving away 2 of them, actually. It's a giveaway you don't want to miss. Renée, it is so wonderful to have you join us today.
I'm delighted to be here, and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I am so excited for your presentation because I have had the opportunity to get a sneak peek of your brand, and I'm so impressed. I'd love to hear just a little bit of how your particular brand has evolved over the years.
Oh, you're so kind. Thank you so much. Well, I am extraordinarily passionate about branding. And so quickly, I launched my company with an email to 75 people, a good number of whom I had not talked with in almost like 8 years, give or take. But I had had the opportunity to work with them and get to know them over the course of my career in various roles and whatnot. And the response was just absolutely amazing. And I had already built out the logo that I'll share here in my presentation. Pretty much the evolution of my brand has really been dynamic, as they should be, but it's been as my company has grown. This past May, I celebrated my 11th year in business with Renée Walker and Associates. And I have to tell you, that first email to those 75 folks, it had over a 90% open rate, lots of comments, lots of, yeah, I'm glad you're doing it. I asked 3 things. If you have any advice for me, please share. If you have any referrals you can send me, I'd appreciate it. And I just generally appreciate your support. And with that, I landed my first anchor client, which was almost $100,000.
Wow. So Diane is saying congrats, Renée, and I'm saying congratulations, Renée. That's amazing. And if you really think about what you've just shared with us, they're just the basics of business, and your brand has evolved and it's certainly grown. And wow, amazing. I know you're going to talk more about how you have cultivated your brand and how you can help others do the same. So thank you for sharing that story.
Oh, no, my pleasure. Like I said, I am very passionate about this, and I'm delighted to be here and share my insights with everyone today.
Wonderful. Well, we'll let you take it away.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Okay, next slide. So I'm also going to say I really want this to be informative and insightful for you guys. So if you have any questions or comments, as Cheryl indicated, please make note in the chat so that we can make sure that this is not me as a talking head, but this is really helpful for you guys. And I honestly believe we learn more by community than we do by ourselves. So I certainly invite you to be participatory. I would really appreciate it. So basically, Cheryl already introduced me. So there's not anything real new here, except for the fact that I am the president of Renée Walker and Associates. We're a strategy, brand, and marketing communications agency. And one of the first things I did in my first year after opening my company was to write a book called Brand Power for Small Business Entrepreneurs. It was so important to me because over the course of my corporate career, I would come in contact with vendors who had great products and great services, but because of how they showed up, it was very difficult to get buy-in and support inside the customer and inside our companies and with other customers and stuff. And so I saw that firsthand and really wanted to be able to help share this information. So a lot of what I'm going to share with you today has everything to do with strategy. So there will be some elements where I'll talk about, like, here's the process, or here is the TikTok of how you get from one part to the next. However, this is really to be helpful to you to think about your brand, because as a business owner, that you control that. The first thing, and I will talk in a moment about myths and misconceptions, but the first thing I want to make clear is that there's a lot of misinformation when you Google brand or branding and whatnot. And so today I'm going to give you brass tacks. I'm straight, no chaser. So I'm going to give it to you real. I'm going to give it to you straight. First and foremost, you control your brand, period. Drop the mic, point blank. Your reputation is what other people think of you based on their interactions with you. And that could be social media, it could be in person, it could be in a meeting, it could be your customers, it could be your website, right? All those things help them sort of decide help them sort of perceive what your reputation is. But you control how they perceive your brand. Okay, with that, next slide, please.
And Renee, I want to kind of dig in a little bit on what you said is
Mhm.
you would see people in the corporate roles you were in, and you'd see people come in and their branding wasn't helping them, if you will.
Mhm.
What did you see? Could you explain just a little bit about that?
Oh, 100%. So here, I guess the quick take is this. If you want a customer, whether it's a corporation or your ideal customer or whomever you're targeting with your products and services, if you want them to purchase from you, they go through the same process you go through when you're making a purchase, whether it's for your business or for you personally, right? So there is some amount of assessment. And so, if you don't care to show up with a quality deck, if you are using Gmail or AOL or whatnot, if you don't have a professional presence and presentation of your services, what typically happens is they believe that's how you will deliver your product or services. And that's not necessarily true, but that's the perception of what they're taking from that. So I'm very meticulous about how things look, about how the tone and all of that, and we'll get into that, but that's what I'm talking about. You know, there was a study, now it's kind of old, they haven't redone it yet, but it's 2011. New York University did a study, and they wanted to find out what happens when we first see one another without having any conversation. We make 11 major decisions about each other, and people
Mm.
make big decisions about brands and services, and we all do it. So if you happen on a website, you're searching for something, and you happen on a website that looks like it came from the 1980s, are you really going to value that information, or are you going to believe that maybe it's not as relevant and up to date? And it could be very solid, recent, information, but because of how it's presented, we think it's old, so that's not relevant for us now, so we move on. And that's what I'm saying, and that's what I saw a lot in corporate.
Real talk. Thank you, Renee.
Absolutely. Okay. So now what we're going to cover is I'm going to go through brand essentials. So we'll do a little bit more of what Cheryl and I just talked about in terms of myths and faux pas, things to think about and to avoid. I'll also cover the keys to success, but I'm going to use several global brands that are highly ranked by Interbrand, and I'll talk about that more specifically. And then I'm going to give you the blueprint on how you can transform, build, take yours to the next level, whatever stage you're in. It's okay. Brands are meant to be dynamic and they're meant to evolve. So if you didn't, you're not where you want to be, it's not being leveraged right now, it's a competitive advantage, that's okay. After we're done today, you'll have enough information and the tools to start that transformation. And that's what I care about most. And then I'll give some final thoughts. We'll talk about the giveaway. And I'll also tell you that I've created a cheat sheet for you so that you will have the opportunity to kind of know what those thought starters are and things to consider as you're looking to transform or build your brand. Thanks. Next. Okay. So we're going to go with brand essentials, and I'm going to get into the myths and faux pas. And I've mentioned a couple of them, but it's really, really important that we fully understand what this looks like and what it means when you present yourself in a certain way. So there are a ton of myths out about what a brand is and what is not. So let me just take a couple off the table. If you have a logo and a company name and a color that you picked, that is not necessarily your brand. In fact, your brand is much more important than that, and it has many more components than that. So it's really about how you show up and how you convey the value you provide to your customers. So I'm not sure why we're not moving, but the first myth is a lot of business owners, particularly those who are just starting out, believe that their brand does not have any value. And that's simply not the case. When you build a profitable brand or you build a strong brand presence, you're creating the opportunity to bring business to you, right? We all go hunt for it, but they'll come to you. The second thing that's important about the value of your brand is that it is something that you should be using as a competitive advantage in your business. And if you're not today, I'm going to talk a lot about that. Oh, yes. Okay. There we go. Thank you. All right. Next, your brand is, as I said, not your company or your logo name. That's not all of it. It's that represents your brand. It's not what your brand is. Then there is your brand. Branding is only needed for bigger companies, bigger being operative. Like it could be somebody bigger than me, it could be, $100,000 company versus I'm at 50,000. Or it could be for some people, oh, if you're a global company, of course you have the time and the money to be investing in a brand. The truth of the matter is you want to invest in your brand because it's how you're able to differentiate yourself in the marketplace. Now, I talk to business owners all the time. I talk to my clients and prospective clients all the time, and everyone's trying to figure out how to differentiate, and they all think it has something to do with marketing, and it really doesn't. It has to do with your brand. Brand and marketing are a dynamic duo. They need each other. And the more you can build brand awareness, the stronger your presence is, the more you have the opportunity to reap benefits and use it as a competitive advantage. And I'll explain how I use mine in a second. The other myth is that your customers don't care about whether or not you have a brand. Well, that's not true. That's just simply false. Your customers care because when you're a customer, you care. It may not be top of mind. It may not be something that you really think about. But if you were to really stop and think the last time you needed to make a major purchase, what process you went through and what appealed to you. We all have particular brands. Some of them are car companies, some of them are detergent. Doesn't really matter. It's something that speaks to you and that you have a connection with. It could be you grew up with it as a child and you carry that on into adulthood. It could be that you discovered something that really worked well for you, that spoke to you. Maybe they have the same kind of approach in terms of social responsibility. All these things are now factors more than they've been in the past. And so your customers absolutely do care. And I would invite you to just do some searching on, Google and whatnot, and you will see how many like Pew Research and others are actually leaning into determining how much a brand now plays in the purchase decision. All right. Advertising, branding, and marketing are not the same. My space is very confusing. I'm the first to admit that. Everything seems to be interchangeable, but it's not. They all work together. And when you have the right formula, you can do some amazing things. But your brand is really about your promise to your customer. It and how you advertise it and how you market it and why you do all those things, that's not the core or the essence of what your brand is. Okay. So with that, let me go to faux pas. I spoke about one, which is failing to leverage your brand as a competitive advantage. So I'm going to explain what that means now. So I was once invited. I was one of 4 companies early, once I had launched the company within the first 2 years, I believe, where I was one of 4 companies invited to participate in an RFP process. And I was the smaller and the newer of the companies that had been invited. I got to the table because of the strength of the brand I had already put in the marketplace, right? People knew me. I leveraged all of the work I had done in the multiple different positions. And so when I came to the marketplace, I came fully ready to participate. That being said, the funny thing about it was that when I became a finalist, people were kind of like, can she pull this off and whatnot? But the board was like, absolutely. We have every confidence. So the way I use my brand as a competitive advantage is I typically have a different level of conversation with prospective clients. I don't have to sell that I'm qualified. I don't have to say, here's what we do or what we've done. I don't have to go through that whole litany of here are all my previous clients. And in fact, in a number of my proposals, I don't even mention previous clients, right? It's about what I can do for you. If somebody asks, I'm happy to, share one or two, but that's not something I lead with because I don't have to. When you go to my website, which everybody does, or you go to social media for social proof, my brand is consistent across all of it, right? So I don't have to do those things. That's a competitive advantage. I don't have to get people to believe that I can deliver the quality. They know that I can. They believe that I can. They convey that value on me. So now I get to have the conversation that's like 2 or 3 conversations later, right? Which is like, what's really going on? How can we be most helpful? And I get to have a strategy conversation rather than a business development conversation, if that makes sense. So your brand is super, super important. And I use mine as a competitive advantage. The second thing is neglecting to invest in it, right? So when you start out, you're trying to figure it all out. However, how you enter the marketplace is super, super important, particularly if you're trying to leverage relationships that you had in corporate. Because as I said, a lot of corporations are risk averse. They need to be completely sure if they're bringing in a new vendor that you're going to deliver and they're not going to get caught short. So if you don't show up correctly, it's very difficult. You're putting obstacles in your own way. And I want to make sure you get those obstacles out of your way. I'm going to pause for a second to see if we have any questions or comments, Cheryl.
We don't have questions, but we have some great comments. Diane saying your prior work and reputation speak for you, which is so true, is what you've been able to create is something, it's kind of like this, it's like an employee that works when you're asleep or at any time of the day. It's working
Absolutely.
for you. So it's not just a website. It's not just a LinkedIn profile. It's kind of all of it working together when somebody Googles you or types in your name in one of these social platforms.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's great. And we've got Naomi saying, be consistent across all platforms.
Yes.
build a strong brand presence to convey the value of your brand, even as a startup. So I know you'll address what startups can
Yes.
do when they don't have the same kind of cash that an established
Absolutely.
business does. So I know you'll talk about that in just a bit. Oh, and
Absolutely.
Patricia's
Okay.
asking, what's your website? So people can go check it out while you're talking.
Awesome. I have two. My speaking website is reneewalker.com, super easy. And my business website is reneewalkerandassociates.com. So please check it out. Love to know what you think about it. Because I do talk about some of what I do in this presentation as well. All right. And then we talked about this at the beginning, but this unprofessional brand is a real big thing. I'm amazed. Even today, I received any number, as we all do, of unsolicited emails trying to market products and services. I can tell you if it comes from Gmail, AOL, or any of those, I'm a hard pass. I won't even consider it, right? Because you're supposed to be in business and you're treating it like a hobby. So as a customer, am I going to be treated like a customer from a business, or am I going to be treated more like a hobby thing? I don't know. But if you don't take the time to invest, I mean, you can still use Gmail, but pay for the domain so that it all looks professional, right? But those are just red flags that we don't need to have. If you have a website or you don't have a website, I would say make sure your website is professional and it is on level with your brand. When you're doing proposals, and I saw this a lot, and I still see a lot, unfortunately, with some clients. If you're going after a book of business, whatever that book of business is, if it's $200 or if it's $20,000 or if it's $200,000, your proposal needs to be at least at that level, but hopefully beyond that. You need to exceed that. So if you're slapping together something and you're trying to get a $10,000 contract, you're never going to see the light of day because you're showing that you don't bring the value for your own business. So why would I entrust you with mine, right? So when I say unprofessional, those are the things I'm talking about. Next, please. And the other thing I think is interesting is we all intuitively do it as personal shoppers. But when we are looking at our business, we don't really bring that forward. And so I always suggest to clients that they get off the stage and sit in the front row and really take a hard look at their brand. And here's the one question you should ask yourself: would you hire you based on that review, on that
Oof,
assessment?
you're making us do some hard thinking, Renee. Oof.
All right, I mentioned this earlier, but your brand is not your logo, your tagline, your color palette, or your website. It really is the collection of perceptions from both your employees and your customers and stakeholders and the general public as well. And it comes from their experience, whether it's interacting with one of your touch points, you personally, your company, your customer service department. Like if you say, for example, in my case, I have a high value, high touch brand, right? I don't ever want any of my customers or clients to feel like I don't care about them. I'm going to give them attention and personal service. So if a problem comes up, then I am going to do what I can because again, high value, high touch. So I'm going to try to be more like Neiman Marcus, which is, you walk in with a problem, even if they know they can't solve it, you still feel good when you leave. Right? They've empowered their people to make sure that their brand is of service to their customers. And I want to make sure that we do that. So, as you're defining your brand, you need to do the same thing. You absolutely need to know exactly what your brand promise is and what perceptions you're driving and how that's going to help you be successful with your business, not just near term, but long term. We can go ahead to the next slide. So, sure, I see you nodding over there. What are you thinking?
I just the things you're saying, I think it's probably doing the same for the people in the audience. Is it's making you sit back and imagine your brand as a stranger, as a stranger would, and what
Mhm.
would they say? And Diane has a couple of really good questions. So I
Sure.
can wait until after we
No,
can
no,
ask these
let's go.
questions now. So Diane has a question about the website itself. Are
Mhm,
websites designed and hosted on Squarespace
mhm.
seen as less professional?
So I won't say that it's less professional. I think what's most important is that you have good content, good visuals, and that most importantly, beyond all of that, is that it is built from how your customers will most likely, it needs to be intuitive to them. So when we do website redesigns, we usually shock our clients a bit because everybody's so focused on how they do business and how their, infrastructure and all the sales and all that stuff has to happen. Your customers don't care about that. What they care about is their experience. And so if again, your experience is you're high on customer service, then the website should navigate in a way that is intuitive for your customers and not something that they need an internal playbook for. And I still see a lot of that today. So I don't think that's lesser. I think it's a starter place. And when you can and you have the resources to move to a fully designed website that you own, I always think that's best. But again, your brand evolves as you do.
Great. That's great.
Any others?
And there's one more from Diane,
Mhm,
and I think a lot of people in our audience can relate to this. She's a solopreneur
mhm,
doing all of the things,
mhm,
the blogs,
mhm,
the website updates,
mhm.
social media, and it and because she's doing all that, it maximizes activities. All of
Sure. So when you're first starting, you are everything. You're founder, CEO, chief cook, bottle washer. I get it. I was that as well. So you have to prioritize, kind of one, create a brand that's solid, and make sure that you're infusing that through all your touch points. And then what's next is you have to find clients because if you do the brand well, it'll make it easier for you to actually market and be known and get referrals and those types of things. So, where you can, I'm going to tell you, Fiverr has been great in my life, particularly when I first started my company. Even though I had graphic designers and web developers and all of that, I did not want to take them off of client work to try and do stuff for my company specifically. So I would hire it out. Now you have to be careful, right? You should do your due diligence, but there are any number of freelancers out there that would be helpful, and depending on where you live and the creative community, you may be able to even find some folks in school who have the requisite knowledge on the basics on graphics and whatnot. It really depends on what you need. So the things that you can actually outsource to folks that are going to give you high quality results with little investment, absolutely do it. And then the other things you might have to continue to try and work on, but you can take some things off. And I'll tell you, if you do that in terms of outsourcing, you want to make sure you have a very strong brand strategy. So when you are hiring people or engaging other people, they know what the playbook is, so they can be on the same page and the same plan that you are. But I highly recommend it.
So we love the questions coming in, and actually we love all the comments coming in from people who are sharing your wisdom ideas in the chat. So please keep doing that. I think what we'll do is let you, Renee, go through your presentation and we can ask all the questions at the end so as not to
Okay,
derail you from the just the great things that you're going to share with us.
I
So share
appreciate
your
that. So
questions, share your takeaways.
I am going to go kind of quickly, but it's available on replay. So if you missed something, and you can always follow me, and I'm always happy to engage. All right. So if you hear nothing else that I say after this point, hear this. One of the reasons I was able to leverage my brand when I launched Renee Walker and Associates had to do with what I'm sharing with you on the screen now. Most folks think, business owners specifically or entrepreneurs think that the only brand they need to care about is their company brand. But as I've designed this slide, all these other ones support it, right? So it starts with you as a person. kind of your personal brand, your core values, your integrity, your reputation. Because if you're a solopreneur, or a partner or managing partner or the CEO or whatever, it really comes down to you, right? So your personal brand has to be right. It has to. You have to understand what it's about. You have to understand what you're putting out there and what you've been putting out there. And if you need to rehab it, you can do that. But generally, understand that your personal brand is the foundation for everything. Then you now have this executive brand. And that's where we're talking about your leadership capabilities. We're talking about your credibility as a business leader. We're talking about your expertise and also your executive presence, right? So it's really important that when you continue to evolve in your entrepreneurial journey, that you really lean into your executive presence. If you are carrying the title of CEO and president, then you need to show up as a CEO and president or managing founder or whatever, right? Again, people are making judgments without ever even talking to you. So you want to make sure you step into any situation appropriately. Then you have your employer brand. So you may be a solopreneur today. That's not necessarily where you might end up. So you really need to think about what kind of culture you want to have. And here's the thing that brand can do for you, a strong brand. Even though you may be smaller than, say, some of the bigger corporations, you can still compete for in demand talent because they're not happy generally in corporate. What they care about mostly, yeah, benefits and money and all that. I get that. However, some of it is personal satisfaction. COVID taught us that working remote works better for some people. Um, it works better for their productivity. It works better for their creativity, their innovation, and all those things. So if they're in a situation where they're required to show up in the office and they would rather be more flexible and you can offer the flexibility, you have an opportunity. We saw that with the Great Resignation. We've seen it cyclically throughout the course of the last few decades. So your employer brand says, this is the culture we have. This is how we treat our employees. This is how we deliver our services. Because remember, once you have employees or partners, you're not delivering the service anymore. They are. They become your brand. And so being able to attract the right folks that align with your brand is super important. And you can be competitive in the marketplace for on demand talent. And with all that said, that's when your company brand comes into play, right? It's a combination of all of that if you're the business owner, if you're the CEO, if you're the president or founder or whatever not. And so when you're thinking about your brand to leverage it as a competitive advantage, you need to think about all these aspects. It's not just how the company shows up. It's how you show up. It's how you show up as an executive. It's how you show up as an employer. And it's how your company delivers its products and services to its clients and customers. We can move forward. Okay. Next piece is here are the key elements for your brand. First and foremost, it needs to be authentic. So I mentioned before, where if you go out and Google, you'll find all these folks saying, hey, you should figure out your target market and figure out what they like and then create your brand. Absolutely not. No. A brand has to be born from the inside out, not outside in, because that can't be authentic. Because what if they change their minds? What if the opportunity no longer exists? Does that mean you have to start over with the next target market? Well, if you do that, then you're not building brand equity, you're not being authentic, you're not being transparent, ethical, or genuine. And those things really drive. I will tell you that there are more and more studies that show that consumers have become super, super savvy and super smart, and that they do a lot of research before they decide, make a purchase decision. And so authenticity really matters. Customer focus. Your customers want to know that they get that you're in business to make money. We all understand that. That can't not be the driver of your brand, however. Your customers need to know that you're going to deliver what you promise at the end of the day. So aligning your internal culture, your operations, all of that. One of my biggest frustrations, and I know I'm not alone in this, is that when you have an issue with whatever and you go to chat and you get the bot and the bot doesn't understand what you're saying, and then you finally get to a person and they're not empowered to actually help you resolve the issue, you have to escalate it or maybe escalate it again. That's not a customer focused situation, because for the majority of what people call about, particularly if you know there's a known issue, you should empower your front line. It makes it so much better because you don't want your customers frustrated if you have a customer first focus, right? So that's just a quick example. And then we've talked about consistency. When you and your brand show up, it should be consistent always. They should absolutely know. And if someone is impersonating you or trying to, kind of leverage your brand, they will know instantaneously that did not come from you. And I know that because it's happened to me, where I've had to send a cease and desist and get lawyers involved. But at the end of the day, the folks who brought it to me absolutely said, I know this could not be you because you would never do something like this, right? Because my brand is so strong. And I have told other business owners when I've Googled things, and this is a real thing, I don't know why people do this. I Google for whatever, and the one of the vendors that I was working with literally came up in a search attached to another domain from a competitor.
What?
100%. I Googled for them and this
Yeah.
other company came up, and I immediately sent it to the CEO going, hey, this may be a problem for you, right? Because it
Yeah.
didn't look anything like them. It was a whole different domain. It was horrible. And that
Okay.
happens. So consistency is important because people need to understand and know what to expect so they can continue to convey and elevate the value that they hold you with regard in. But also, if something bad happens, people will know it's not you.
Right.
Next slide when you get a chance.
I wonder if that's when you realized, Renee, that you did it right. That you not that you had to deal with the lawyers and the cease and desist, but just the fact that people were reaching out to you and saying, "Hey, this is not you. This is not right." I imagine there was a
Mhm.
bit of pride and a little bit of that, like, "Oh, I did it right."
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Again, today it's very difficult. There's so many platforms, there's so many new platforms. If you Google an article and you're reading it, you might see it 12 other times and not be 100% sure who actually originated it.
Right.
So you have to pay attention. And if you're, using pieces of people's thoughts and whatever and content, attribute it to them. But I've literally seen where like most of the results are the same article from different people, right? So I mean, it
Right.
happens. It's sad, but it happens. Okay, profitable brand. How are we doing on time, by the way?
About 15 minutes or so.
I can do it.
I
Okay,
I know
profitable
you can do
brands.
it.
So first and foremost, they command premium pricing. They differentiate in the marketplace and they create the competitive advantage we've talked about. They appeal to purchase ready customers, meaning that you don't have to go convince people or try and find them. If you're where they want you to be, then you'll absolutely get the benefit of that because they will be attracted to your brand. They increase customer loyalty and referrals remains the best marketing tool to date, word of mouth. They attract and also retain on demand talent. So once you invest in employees that are really helping you move the company forward, you're less likely to lose them. And they create sustainable growth as well as financial stability. We can move forward. Actually, two slides because the next one is a title slide. Thank you. Now I'm going to talk about the iconic global brands. I'm going to start with Apple, and it's not just because I'm an Apple fan, but what they've done with their brand is truly, truly inspiring. Number one, Interbrands comes out every October with what they say is the best global brands. They do a ton of research. They use a lot of metrics, blah, blah, blah. For the last 5 to 7 years, Apple has continued to gain value, and it's currently for uh, 2023 is 482 million, and they're customer focused. The upshot on Apple is their brand is consistent across all products and platforms, in store, on the website, customer service, all of it. They really make their new associates go through 30 days of training before they ever actually get to be on the floor by themselves, a whole month, because they want to make sure they understand, they're infused with the brand. They understand kind of how to approach situations, how to work with people, all of that. So from a customer focused perspective, if you're looking for a guide, Apple is a great one. We can move forward. The other thing is they deliver their brand promise in every single iteration of every product they put out. And that's super, super awesome. Google, I mean, I had a quick story about them. So they're forward thinking and innovative, no problem. I mean, we all now Google, right? As opposed to Bing and all
Yeah.
this other stuff. So they clearly knew what they were doing. Here's the funny thing: before, when they were Google and then they created Alphabet. But at the beginning, for those of you who are hearing me and going, yeah, but I can't brand, blah blah blah. When Google originally launched, its initial name was Backrub.
Did not know
Yes,
that. What?
100%.
Like
So
back rub? Like,
technically, 100%.
oh,
You can literally brand anything. Apple branded a fruit. What was a Google? Okay. So it's not unheard of. Like the considerations you want to make are like, okay, how much do I want to invest? How much equity do I want to have to build in order to create something really unique and all of that? But at the end of the day, you can do it. You can move forward, please. And it's a true story. You can Google it. They were back rub. Coca-Cola has staying power. They were launched in 1892. The reason that they have staying power is that they listen to their customers and they're always trying to innovate based on customer feedback. Now, to be honest, every brand makes missteps from time to time. They did a redesign on the bottle and that was a disaster. And they tried a couple of iterations of different flavors and whatnot, and that didn't quite work. But at the end of the day, people who like Coca-Cola love Coca-Cola. They don't really like to have to drink to other people, but the staying power is in that they listen to their customers. That's why they are around. We can move forward. So the last one I'm going to share is Disney, and it is consistency because they say that they want to be the happiest place on earth, and they try and do everything to make sure from the moment you arrive at any of their properties until you leave that you have nothing but an exceptional experience. Wholesome, good fun, all of that. But here's what they did. They evolved and created the Disney Institute like about 30 years ago, right? 3 decades ago. And now they train professionals and companies and organizations based on their business insights and their best practices. So they evolved to a point of, hey, we figured some stuff out. Let us share it. And going to the Disney Institute is awesome. And it's a great experience. So we can move forward. I want to make sure we have time for questions.
and you have some, just so you know.
Okay, awesome. All right. So now I'm going to talk about the blueprint, the strategies for success. And there are three main things to get your strategy straight. Okay, the first one is value. Whenever you're branding, you lead with the value you provide to your customers. I want to say that again. It's the value you provide to your customers. They need to understand that you are delivering something that's going to help them with a pain point or help them capitalize on an opportunity or make them happy, whatever that is, right? So the first thing when you're thinking about your new brand strategy is you have to determine your why. Like we all know that personally, we probably started our businesses because we wanted to do something different. We saw a gap, we saw a need, we wanted to be the masters of our own universe, our time, our worth, all of that. And that's great. But why you decided to help customers is the why that you need to answer. And I find that oftentimes we've not thought about that. But when you're thinking about your brand, it's your why. Why do you want to help whatever customers you want to help? You need to define your value that you provide based on your products and services. How do you help them? So that could look like, oh, okay. So if I help you be more efficient or productive, you're going to eliminate some cost. You're going to be able to produce more products or services or products or goods, and you're going to be able to do it more efficiently, which means that your ROI is going to increase. So oftentimes we think about, oh, well, I'm going to solve X problem. We don't think about what that means to their business or them personally, right? So if I get more time back in my day, if you do spa services and I go to your spa and I'm going to be more relaxed and calm and able to like get my creative juices flowing, we don't think past that. We think about, oh, okay, well, I'm going to solve X problem. Go beyond that. What does that mean for them? Because that's also part of how you convey your value, but it's also should be part of how you do your pricing strategy, which is for another day. Okay. Uh,
We'll have to bring you
you
back,
need
Renee.
you need to define your customer experience. You need to be, like I said, get off the stage, have a seat in the front row. And if you were the customer, what do you want them to experience? The biggest part of differentiation is not widgets, it's the delivery of the service. It's how you make them feel. They will always remember how you made them feel. They will always remember you showed up for them when they needed you. They will always remember that and they will reward you for that. And then you want to develop your brand positioning statement and tagline. And I have an example of that. So I'll discuss that in a minute. Next is your voice. And that's how you showcase your authentic brand personality. And in the cheat sheet, I give you a link to a website that has a bunch of different brand personality attributes so you can have a better sense and sort of sit there and figure out kind of really what your brand, what your voice is all about and the brand is all about. You want to then identify 5 of those. I always tell everybody do 5 and then prioritize them and then focus on the top 3. So this is a thoughtful process. This isn't, I'm just going to pick some stuff. You really need to think about it and be clear about your priorities when you're trying to figure out the order and the ranking of those 5. And then you have your visual identity. Almost intuitively, everybody thinks your brand is all about the visual identity, and they start there. You start with your value. That will inform your voice. Those 2 will inform your visual identity. And when you do that, you develop an authentic and engaging brand identity that's compelling and unique to you. You can determine what colors go best with that. Each color represents something else. Like blue is used a lot in corporate because it's trust based. Red is bold. So there are all these different ways to look at the colors. Or you might just decide, purple's my thing and that's what I'm going to do. And that's fine too. But you should be aware of what the various colors mean in terms of how they connect with folks and what people perceive. Typography, your font's the same. And even the tone of your communications are all part of that. So how your brand looks has a tone to it as well. And I'll show you with mine. And then you identify all of your touch points. They grow and ebb and flow over time, but you've got logo, stationery, you've got website, you have phone. Like, what does the voicemail message sound like when you're not able to, answer the phone? All of that is a touch point. So you want to basically make sure that all those things are aligned. And then you create the brand identity and whatever marketing assets you need based on the touch points. Next slide, please. So now we're getting into my stuff. Yes, I will expound on competitive advantage. That caught my eye. Okay, so my positioning statement is really long, but I highlighted the important parts. Basically, we help our clients achieve higher performance, productivity, and profits. Period, point blank. Don't really care what industry you're in. Don't really care if you're nonprofit, for profit, corporate. Don't really care. That's what we do. And my brand is a little bold, although I didn't put that on the screen. It's a tad bit bold. But simply put, the best and most ambitious brands associate with us because they trust in our experience and expertise to help them succeed. So everything that I do with my company is based on this positioning statement. My logo, if you can, is a little elegant and it has a little bit of movement to it, meaning we're, forward thinking. The tagline is transforming brands, engineering success, because strategy is a part of success. My brand personality, imaginative, we're sophisticated and we're dynamic. The voice is trustworthy, informative, confident, and a little savvy. Got to have a little bit of, a little bit. And then my brand identity is sophisticated, crisp, and dynamic. So the blue, again, trust based. It's not your typical navy blue. It has a little bit of green hues and whatnot in it. The RW in my logo was actually hand drawn by an artist in, I forget what country now. It's been so long, but she was amazing to work with. And it really sort of settles you. It makes life easier for you. You don't have to try and figure stuff out. You know who you are. You know who you want to work with. You know what value you provide. So the rest of it just becomes seamless when your brand strategy is solid. Next slide, please.
Like I said in the beginning, Renee, it's beautiful and cohesive, and I can feel like the exhale, right? It's like, that looks great.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to put this one up. I don't think I put it on my website, but on the webpage, but I will put it up because I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But this is how you build trust and staying power. You'll notice the value proposition is always rising and your delivery on your brand promises across everything. Those are the two things you absolutely should know. The rest of it I've talked through. You definitely want to make sure you're providing dependable, consistent service that's exceptional, because that is the bread and butter of what your brand should be doing to differentiate yourself from all of your competitors and peers. And I will also say social proof is important. People check two things now. They go to your website first, and then they look you up on social media. And it's not just LinkedIn, although everybody should have a LinkedIn profile. And as a business owner, whether you're a solopreneur or whatever, if possible, I always recommend that you also purchase your name domain. So when I started my company, my name domain was with somebody in Europe who was a punk rocker. And I was in business for, I think, four or 5 years before she gave the domain up, and I was able to acquire it. So I think the future is always bright. So if you can get your name with your initial or whatever, you should absolutely do that. That way you can control that part of the brand as well. Remember, it's your personal brand, your executive brand, your company brand, and then your employer brand. One more slide change, please. We're almost there. I want to make sure I get to questions. All right, my final thoughts. Every business has a brand, whether you manage it or not. I suggest you manage it and have intent and be purposeful in doing so. Your brand, again, is a collection of the perceptions that you help to create with those who come in contact with your brand. A profitable brand, you leverage it as a competitive advantage because it can drive sales. If someone comes to your website and decides that you're credible, that you have the expertise, that your product or service is likely to be something that they're looking for that can help them, they're going to reach out to you and it will shorten your sales cycle. You get to have a different kind of conversation. You're no longer in that pool of trying to demonstrate that you have that capability. They've already decided you have it. And so now it's about fit. And that's what I mean about a competitive advantage. They convey the value onto you so you can forget that part and you're basically focused on, how can I service you? Is this a fit for me? Is there a fit for you? That type of thing. And it takes a less time to make the sale and generate revenue because you don't have to go through all those hoops. And then your brand has value no matter how big or small your company. And I believe those benefits are absolutely crystal clear. Next slide, please. You want me to talk about the giveaway? Or you want to stop and do questions now?
Let me do a couple questions while the giveaway is up because
Okay,
people
perfect.
will need to actually, so explain, you want people to click on the link, it's in the chat, or go to that QR code,
Mhm,
and you'll have the opportunity to download the cheat sheet that you talked about and then enter to
mhm.
win one of 2 free 30-minute brand strategy sessions with you.
Yes.
So we're
Yes.
gonna leave that up, and I'm gonna ask a couple questions if that's okay, Renee.
Absolutely. Thank
So
you.
Naomi is asking, what is an example website platform that you suggest?
But I'm not sure I understand.
So we were
Which
talking earlier about Squarespace
mhm.
and all the other platforms and Squarespace kind of being the starter. And then you were talking about where to kind of go from there, like if
Oh,
there's an
got it.
opportunity to
Got
elevate,
it.
what would you suggest?
So, okay. So that's a bit tricky because I don't really know kind of what space you're playing in and stuff. But what I would generally say is you want to find, once you're ready to make the move, you want to find a web developer. It doesn't necessarily have to be super expensive guy or person, but you want to find somebody who can help you figure out hosting because that's really important if you're going, because the value of a Squarespace and the GoDaddy version and all that is that they just give it to you all in a package. When you move, like right now, I have a hosting account with a company that hosts all my websites. I have, somebody who helps me when I need graphic design. I have, so I have a content person. So some stuff I write, most of the time they do it. So it becomes a bigger kind of effort. So when you're ready for that, you want to find a web developer that's reliable, that has a good reputation, that can help you figure out how much hosting, where it makes sense, because you want your website someplace that's redundant, so that if a server fails, you're not going to be impacted. It'll roll over, those types of things. And then the second thing is you want to make sure that you can maintain and continue to evolve your website as your business evolves. So I hope that answers your question, Naomi.
Great answer. Great question. I know we have some questions still left unanswered. Please reach out to Renee, find her on LinkedIn, find her on our social media platforms. You, again, Renee, have an opportunity, you're giving an opportunity for people to win one of 2 free 30-minute brand strategy sessions. So that QR code is there on your screen, or the link to apply is right there in the chat. So please go do that. Renee, thank you so much. This was immensely helpful for people who are starting out or who've been in business for a while to take a look at their brand and see what the brand is telling the marketplace.
Absolutely. And thank you guys so much. And I apologize that I wasn't able to get to all your questions, but absolutely, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's the quickest way to get a response. Or, if you throw something in on the form that's on that landing page that you're going to, I will certainly be responsive as soon as I can be. Thank you guys so much. I hope this was insightful. I hope it was valuable. And I hope you're motivated to go out and do some awesome things.
This was extremely helpful. Thank you. It's gotten me thinking, and I appreciate your time. This presentation will be on the Big View YouTube channel, so you can go back and listen in on and get some of Renee's nuggets again, some really great things that she shared with us. So thank you for joining us. We'll see you for the next workshop next time. Have a great day, everybody. Can own any room you walk into and instantly show up as the leader in your space. Hi, I'm Cheryl Tan. I'm a former TV news anchor turned entrepreneur, and I love working with leaders to help them develop 3 pillars of communication success: messaging, presentation, and strategy. Does this sound like you? You aren't sure how to look professional on stage or on camera, and that impacts how confident you feel showing up at all. You don't know how to describe what you do simply and clearly. You are most certainly an expert in your industry, but you haven't figured out yet how to explain that better. And finally, you don't have a presence anywhere, or at least an online presence you're proud of, which means you need to figure out how you want to show up and what you need to do to create that platform. My custom plan focuses on your message, your presentation, and your strategy. Once those 3 things are working for you, you will get noticed by the right people and opportunities. The best way to see if we're a fit is to have a conversation. Go to CherylTanMedia.com/consultation to book a call. I can't wait to hear your story.
View teleprompter, create videos you're proud of. Easily trim your video by selecting the words where you want to start and end. Color your presentation with automatic subtitles and highlighting keywords. Add your brand logo. Add music for an emotional touch. Add your contact info on an animated business card on all your videos. Easily replace green screen with an image or a video loop. Stand out with a web page with your logo, your video at the center, and personalized button for visitors to interact. It's one tap to simultaneously upload your videos on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Always know what to say next with the Big View teleprompter.